Who has been the worst player in the championship this season? That's what we're going to be discussing in today's video. Using the Who Scored average match ratings, I've gone ahead and picked a starting 11 based on the lowest rated player for each position this season. To go ahead and qualify for the team, a player must have played at least 6 matches in their selected position. And let me just tell you, this isn't a starting 11 you want to be making your way into. Who from your club would you put down as an honourable mention to be getting into this side? But without any further ado, let's jump in. Starting out in goal, and there's no major surprises here, of course it's David Button. He's had an absolutely horrendous season for West Brom. We spoke about how West Brom's goalkeeping position and problem really could have come back to bite them by the end of the season because of how many points were lost at the start of the year, really thanks to Button and a lot of the mishaps that he was having in goal. Out of all the championship goalkeepers that have played in the league this season, he ranks 45th in the league for save percentage, saving just 51.4% of the shots that he's faced. Literally at the start of the season, every shot on target without fail was just going past him. Button in years gone by has been a decent keeper, but he just seems so over the hill by this point that it's been an absolute disastrous year for him, and there's absolutely no surprise whatsoever he is making it into this worst championship XI of the season, because this season without fail he was just dropping clanger after clanger. Coming in at right back, we then have Oliver Turton. Huddersfield fans, brace yourself, there may be a few more Huddersfield players to come in today's worst 11, but Turton obviously being part of the Huddersfield defence that's been so leaky this season, and based on the stats this season, he has been statistically the worst right back in the league with the lowest average match rating. It is a real shame about that injury. He recently picked up an ACL which will keep him out for the remainder of the season, when it did seem, after these last couple of matches in the Huddersfield squad that he had played at the start of February, that he had started to find his feet for the season. But all things considered, not been a great year for him or Huddersfield, and that ACL injury just adds insult to injury really. As our first centre half, we have Swansea City's Nathan Wood, and no real surprise to see at least one Swansea defender in this back line, given they've got the second worst defensive record in the championship so far. Only Wigan have conceded more goals than they have so far this season, and given Wigan have tightened things up quite considerably since Maloney came in, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Swansea topping this statistic come the end of the season. Wood, along with a few of the other Swansea defenders, may be a little bit of a victim of the high possession system that they do play in. He sees a hell of a lot of the ball for someone who's not that comfortable on it whenever I've watched him play, and of course there's going to be individual mistakes which originate from that. It's not just a problem with Wood, but maybe a wider issue at Swansea, the way in which they go ahead and defend and the way they have been so easily opened up so far this season. But he's coming in with the lowest average match rating and makes it into the 11. And coming into partner room at the back, we have Wigan Athletic Curtis Till. No surprise that Wigan have got a defender in there, given they do have the outright worst defensive record in the championship. They have massively tightened that up under Sean Maloney, but interestingly enough, Tilt hasn't played since Maloney has come in. Maybe that speaks to the fact of why his average match rating has been so low this season, and yeah, the many blunders that have cropped up with him this year. No doubt a great player for Wigan in their League One days. Is the championship a step too far now at 31? I'd maybe suggest that's the case. Obviously Kolo Toure coming in and trying to get Wigan to play a little bit more football, out from the back, a player like Tilt not suiting him whatsoever, and the skill set that he's good at, has also tanked his rating this season. But he's not been great on the eye whenever I've caught a glimpse of Wigan and him this season, and some of the defensive mistakes that were being made on a regular basis earlier on in the season. 8 bookings this year, did get that goal against Blackpool which redeems him a little bit, but he's not been great. And then to complete our back line, we have Thompson in at Blackpool. I was quite confident that this signing may turn out to be a popular one. Coming over from Brentford to Blackpool in the summer, everything seemed like it might click. Blackpool in need of a little bit more cover in this position, but he's not been great. I'm not going to lie, whenever I've caught a glimpse of him this season, I'm really not sure what he's best at. I think defensively he's a little bit of a vulnerability on that left hand side. It's in plenty of occasions where he's been skipped past and it's been too easily knocked in from that left hand side that he's on. And offensively, I also don't think he offers a great deal to the build up of play either down that left hand side. No goal contributions so far this season. His underlying attacking numbers aren't great in terms of crosses, chance creation, progressing the ball or anything like that, and I'm just sort of stuck with him. Maybe it's the, I don't know, McCarthy and Appleton systems haven't got the best out of him, but individually speaking, not been a great year for him. He's been part of the Blackpool defence, which has shipped loads of goals this season, and I'm not massively surprised that he's in here. On the right hand side, we've got Cardiff City's Shea Yojo, and I'm not massively surprised to see him in here either. I do think there's a player in there. A couple seasons ago for Cardiff, I remember when he was on absolute fire. I think it might have been during that lockdown season. He had one performance away at Preston especially where I thought, my God, I'd love a player like this at North End, but he's just not been on it for Cardiff this season, and a Cardiff side who have badly lacked goals and creativity. So far this season, he's got just 1 goal contribution in 29 league matches. Tries to make things happen, but out of the 66 dribbles that he's attempted this season, he's only managed to successfully pull off 20 of them. His output, generally speaking, has been really poor. His final ball just hasn't been there so far this season. That speaks to the numbers of why they're so low at the moment, and despite there being a few sparks and definitely a player in there, it's just not been his year at all. As our first holding midfielder, we've got QPR's Andre de Zeeuw with a match rating of just 6.23 so far this season for QPR. Seems to have really stalled in his progress. Now I believe, if I remember rightly, I think QPR spent quite a bit of money on him back when they bought him from Ipswich. If I remember rightly, I think he started out fairly promising, but seems to have massively stalled. Like I said, obviously this recent run of form, he hasn't been the player who's been able to inspire any sort of changes in that midfield, and ultimately, especially lately since the turn of the year, he's just looked like another one of the QPR players when I look at that squad who just looks like they're phoning it in a little bit. I'm still not totally sure what he's best at and where he's best utilised, you know, where you get the best out of him on the pitch, but the numbers back it up so far. Not had a great season, it makes it into the worst XI. And partnering him in the middle, we have Huddersfield Town's David Kisumu. I did warn you Huddersfield fans that you might expect 1 or 2 players to crop up in today's video. To be fair, whenever I've seen Huddersfield fans speaking about him, they do seem to speak about him in a more positive light, certainly than some of the other players that we've got making it onto today's video. But in terms of average match ratings, what he does in terms of maybe the work rate off the ball and things doesn't really get taken into much consideration here. Has been guilty of giving the ball away quite cheaply at times as well, and obviously all of that is considered into this one. In on the left hand side, we then have Ryan Longman of Hull City. Really not been a great year for the Hull City winger. He's played in a variety of positions so far this season, but really hasn't been able to nail down any sort of consistency, and his end product I think has been lacking. I think just 1 goal contribution from his last 18 championship appearances, only 3 goal contributions all year round. More recently he's hit quite a drought when it comes to an overall return, but in terms of that consistency of performances, I don't think they've been particularly there with Longman this season. He's still young at only 22 years old and certainly has that room for growth. When Hull originally signed him, I think they got him on loan and made that permanent. I thought it was a really good deal at the time, but since that point I think his progression has really stalled in that whole squad. As the first of the strikers making it into the list, we have Rotherham United's Connor Washington. Now I'm sure a lot of Millers fans will say that Washington has actually been quite a useful player for them this season. He's chipped in with 5 goals, certainly has a lot of endeavour, and while the quality isn't always there and he has been guilty of missing a few chances, I remember him squandering a decent one when Rotherham came to North End earlier on in the season, you do get something back from Washington, albeit, you know, not the most prolific players in the league, but I don't think he was ever built up to be that sort of player anyway. Probably not helped by the fact that at times he has been a little bit isolated, you know, thinking back on when I've watched Rotherham in some of their away performances when they will sit a little bit deeper, and so as a consequence of that we'll lose the ball a bit from not having that many players around him. But yeah, there's probably been worse players than Washington this season, but he's on the list. And then to finish off the side, we have West Brom's Carlon Grant. Sure that Bikies fans maybe aren't too surprised to see him making an appearance on today's list. The 25-year-old who just seems to be dwindling away at the Hawthorns, if we're being honest. I think he is out with an injury at the moment, but this season at their best I think West Brom have been a better side without Grant in the lineup. Obviously played a bit more at the start of the season, did have that loan move that we thought might have happened on deadline day, the January window, to Swansea, but in the end that didn't end up materialising, and I do feel as if Grant is in need of a fresh start maybe elsewhere to go ahead and properly kickstart his career, because he's only 25 years old now, but just feels like this last season or two at West Brom especially, nothing's really fallen for him, and I think that's been the case this season. 3 goals, but the performances have been fairly uninspiring. But guys, there we have it. Those are the worst. But guys, there we have it. That is the worst Championship 11 of the season based on who scored average match ratings. Do you think that anyone has been done a little bit dirty by making it into this team? And do you think anyone else should have made it in? Do let me know in the comments down below. But with that, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. And I'll see you all in the next one.